Hey Team Evolution fans, it's time to hit you up with another deck profile. This time we are going to be talking about Nubatama. Stick around. Alright guys, I know it's crazy, but I also play Nubatama now too. It's kind of fun. Dominate is a really interesting mechanic. It's a lot of fun to play with, and I just really enjoy it. So we're going to start off. Obviously my starter is Madoi. First things first, let me get this out of the way. I'm going to mispronounce almost all of these names, so get ready for that. The Stealth Dragon Madoi, because it's an I at the end. It's a really good card. It helps you get to power stages that you might want to get to when you're dominating units, and you get to draw a card. And that's mainly why you use it. It's because it's going to draw you a card. It's going to go in the soul for soul fuel, and it's going to help you hit lines when you need to hit lines. So, really good card. I approve of it. Use it. Now we'll go up to the grade 3s after we got through with the starter. So obviously we run 4 of Demon Stealth Dragon, Shiranui, Oboro. I like this card. It's a really fun card. It really sets the whole deck. So, at the beginning of your ride phase, you can choose your opponent's, choose a card from your opponent's drop zone, and then your opponent has to call it to a rear guard, and then at the end of the turn, it retires that unit. So this is good. A lot of times players will jank you when you do that, and they'll call it over another unit that already exists. And at first you're like, man, that stinks, but you have other ways to call things, so it's fine. Also, what helps you is you just basically retired a unit without actually having to retire a unit, and so it was not cost. It didn't cost you anything to do that. So you get something out of it. Sure, you won't be able to dominate 2 units without having to do something extra, but you got to get rid of something that otherwise would have been on the board. So I like that. And then the other skill is when you do unit stride, you choose up to 1 of your opponent's rear guards, stand it, dominate it, and then until the end of the turn, it gets plus 4k, and then it attacks your opponent's other unit. So what's nice about this is that you can attack another grade 2, you can attack the starter, you can attack. I mean, I wouldn't advise against this. I'll just say straight go face. But sometimes people want to get rid of other cards and stuff like that. Or if you're afraid that they're going to hit a trigger and it's going to throw your whole plan away, you might just start a attack starter or something else. But my advice to you personally is you want to go for Vanguard. So stick to that. So that's a 4 of. Next, I run 2 Stealth Dragon Original Shiranui. This is not the optimal ride. You're definitely, a lot of times, you're not even going to bother with this card. When you ride it, you're going to be a little sad, but it's good to have another Shiranui target just in case. Some people only run 1 of him and run 3 of the other guy. If you want to do that, I completely respect that. I think it's a very valid. Thing. Sometimes this card will come into play if you use one of my techs in the stride zone. But the other card will do just as fine for that kind of tech as well. So I like this card. I liked this card. I don't like it as much anymore, but I still run it as a 2 of currently. And then last but not least, I run 2 of Remarkable Stealth Rogue, Morishige. So this card is really nice. You choose one of your rear guards and rest it, and then your opponent chooses one of his or her rear guards, and not up to 1. He has to choose 1 of his or her rear guards, and it gets plus power 3k until the end of turn. If he or she chose, this unit gets power plus 10k. This is really, really good card. Usually what I'll do is I'll tuck one of these behind the Vanguard, and then I'll rest it with this, and then give this plus 10k, because my Vanguard's already going to be swinging for 26. Giving another rear guard a 21 is more valuable to me than making this just 1 more stage, is making this 2 more stages. So that's usually a combo I'll do. And then when I dominate, I'll tuck this into the soul and get a CB1. We'll talk about this in a second. So that's my grade 3 lineup. Grade 2 lineup is, we've got Stealth Rogue, Tamahagane, Metsu. I run him as a 3 of. This card is very interesting just because when you ride him or when you call him to rear guard, you may bind up to 1 card from the top of your deck face down. So it's really interesting because only the owner may look at the cards face down. So you can see what card you bind, and then that leads up to the second skill. When a dominated unit attacks during your turn, you may pay the cost, count of +1. If you do, choose one face down card from your you pay the cost. If you do, choose one. Sorry, I lost my train of thought here. Choose one face down card from your bind zone. You put it in your hand. If you do, this card gets power plus 10k. So this is another plus 10k power unit, which is really nice because getting 2 stages is pretty good. And so, and at CB1, it's basically you bind a card and then you get it. So it's not necessarily what I would call a draw, but it is unique because it helps you get a card into your hand for CB1 when a dominated unit attacks. Now, granted, it's only once per turn, so don't go crazy with it. Don't be like, bind, unless you want a lot of options. But usually I'll do it, I'll do 1 or 2 cards, leave them there, because it also combos with another one. Sometimes I'll do 3 to have a good choice and to figure out what I want in the soul, what I want in my hand, stuff like that. But it's a pretty good card. I like it. Next is Stealth Dragon Genkai. So Genkai's really good card. He's a draw engine on his own. He's pretty good, but he also can get deck's all about managing resources effectively, like knowing when to draw, when to use Genkai, when to use other cards, and so that's a really good point here. So when a dominated unit attacks during your turn, if you have Vanguard with Shiranui in its card name, you may pay the cost. If you do, draw a card, and this unit gets power plus 2k. And this is not once per turn, so it's CB1, Soul Blast 1. Yeah, so really good to get some cards into your hand, really build up a pretty sizable hand, but don't go crazy with it because you don't want to expend all your CB on this when you do still need to pay CB for other costs, of course. So the skill is good, just don't overextend it. The next card we run is Stealth Dragon Fuurai. So Fuurai is Generation Brick 1, Soul Blast 1, choose a card from your opponent's drop zone, and your opponent calls that card to his or her open rearguard circle, and then at the end of the turn retire it. So this is what I was talking about. So if you use Oboro's skill, Shiranui's skill, to at the beginning of your right phase to call something and they call it over something else, and you have one of these in your hand, you're going to be fine because you can just Soul Blast 1 and get them to call something else into an open rearguard circle. So they basically just retired something, and then you had to pay a little bit of cost, but at least they're going to get something else. So when you're going to go into Mujinlord, which we'll talk about later, you can still get some really good utility out of that. I like him. His second skill is also really good, so let's go over that. When another unit attacks during your turn, if you have Vanguard with Shiranui in its card name, this unit gets power plus 2k until the end of turn. So basically, when you're doing Mujinlord, this guy's going to get really big. He's going to get slightly bigger. He's going to hit 11k just from 1 domination when you stride. And then he's just going to get bigger. If he's the last attack you make a turn, it's usually advantageous if you have like stands or something like that. It's sometimes really cool to see that happen. I really like this card because of that second skill. I like his first skill because of Mujinlord and things like that. And sometimes you may play somebody who, they only have 1 card and then they find some way around things. And this card is just, I really like this card. So sometimes you may forget Ouroboros and you're like, oh no, I'm a bad player. I wish I had an out. This is your out, I guess. So I run him as a 4 of as well. I think I told you I run Genkai as a 4 of, and I run Metsu as a 3 of. So not talking grade 1s. This is going to be, I don't want to say a conflicting opinions, but there are different trains of thought here. I run the recurring PG, so this is Stealth Dragon Utsuroi. Why do I run it? Because I like recurring PGs. It really comes down to that. In a meta we're at right now where you're getting beat down or you're getting controlled, having PGs that you can get back to you is incredibly versatile. The other option is that you run the unflip, and I totally respect that opinion. I get it because sometimes you're going to need that unflip for other reasons, but I run the recurring because I think it gives you a more sustainable deck overall. in terms of surviving. As long as you manage your resources properly, you don't overextend when you don't have to, you can get around the lack of, not the lack of CB, but the lack of having that extra unflip. I also run, we'll talk about this, I also run the unflip crit, as well as the unflip grade 1, which I probably should have started out before I talked about this card, but I run those, which I think are enough unflip for me personally. So, that's what I do here. Next, 4 of Stride Fodder. I'm really not going to go into this much more and to say that he's your generic Stride Fodder for Shiranui. That's why we run him, because you need Stride Fodder. So, I mean, I think we can all agree that in decks in this time and age, 4 of Stride Fodder is pretty much a must in most situations. So, I run 4 of them. He's also good if you draw into this guy, not the Shiranui grade 3, or even if you if you draw into old Shiranui and you need new Shiranui, you can still fetch him out with this Stride Fodder. So that's why I like him. So we run him as a 4 of. Next, we run 3 of Tengai. So Tengai's skill is when a dominant unit attacks during your turn to the end of turn, this unit gets auto. Put this unit into your soul. At the end of the turn, you may pay the cost. If you do, countercharge 1. So this is one of our countercharge cards. Like I told you, I put this usually behind the Vanguard if I need to rest for the grade 3 plus 10k guy. Other than that, I mean, I'll put them anywhere for boosters, and then if I dominate a unit attacks. The good thing about this card is that you don't have to do it until the end of the turn. So you can get your full advantage out of him. You can boost with him to get that stage, and then at the end of the turn, you're like, all right, tuck these guys in, unflip this, and then I'm ready for next turn. Next, we have Stealth Dragon Meimoudanuki. I think I mispronounced that one pretty bad. So this card is basically the partner card of Metsu in the sense that when you ride him or you call him to R, you can choose up to 2 cards from your deck and then put them face down. Usually I'll do maybe this once for 2 or for 1, and then I'll do the Metsu for 1 as well. That way I can use both skills, pretty well. So that's his first skill. Second skill is once per turn, Generation Break 1. When a dominated unit attacks during your turn, you choose a face-down card from your bind zone, and you put it in your soul. If you do, this gets plus 5k. So this gives it more boost potential, more power. You can also put this into the front row if you know that you're going to be able to do the skill when a dominated unit's going to attack, and you get something in the soul. So it fills up your soul for Fuurai or for some of the strides that you're going to need, and it gives you an extra stage of power, and it can hit lines, or it can hit a line at the Vanguard if it needs to, or it's just a good booster. It's just a really good use of tech there. So I like running him. And then moving on to our trigger lineup, we run 4 of crits. So we run the Noroi. This card is really expensive. Well, it was when I built the deck. I think he still is. He's one of the more pricey cards in the deck, but he's the generic into the soul plus 5k draw card. So trigger for Shiranui. This is the reprint one. I like the art on the reprint. You can run the original. I think that the original is more expensive though, but don't quote me on that. And then we run Hardworking Stealth Rogue Torasada. This is the unflip into the soul unflip 1. So this is your Red Lightning clone. I like him because he's a Red Lightning clone, so I run 4 of them. Next, I run 4 of stand triggers. So this stand is basically on place. If the number of cards in your hand is less than your opponent's, you draw a card, you return it to the deck, shuffle your deck, choose one of your other units, and it gets power plus 3k until the end of turn. So I like that. It's nice to give a dude just extra power, and it also goes back in the deck, so you have another stand back in the deck to combo off of. And then you get to draw a card off of it, so it's nice. I like to run this. If you run draws instead of this, I can respect that. It's totally up to you. I just like the stands to sometimes getting that extra 1 attack is important in critical moments. And then last but not least, we have Good Luck Smile, Zashikihime. So this is the special Fighters Collection heal. I'm sure once we get new heals in BT14, we'll be running those. But this card is, you discard a grade 1 when you use the G guard that coincides with it. You discard a grade 1 or less card from your hand. If you do, you get to draw a card. So it's kind of a recycle. You might not use it, but it's worth having in case you're going to go into the G guard that coincides with it. It's good to have that option. Options are nice. And then we already went through the starter. Now let's touch on the G zone real quick. So currently, like I always do, or I've been doing recently with my deck profiles, I'll tell you the way I'm running it right now, how the meta's changing a little bit. We're in a meta transitional stage. What I might change in it to adapt to that. Right now I run 4 of Maguntenbu. So this is act once per turn, kind of boss 1, persona flip, and then choose one of your opponent's rear guards, and it gets power plus 3k until the end of turn for each face-up card in the G zone. You stand it, dominate that unit, and then it attacks an opponent's other unit. You want to attack the Vanguard, and then at the end of the battle, it retires that unit. So what's really nice about this card is it retires the unit. It gives it plus 3k for each face-up card in the G zone, and it's an extra attack. So basically, on Stride, you're going to get a Dominate from Oboro. On this, you're going to get a second attack. So you're going to get, 2 attacks out of the Stride and this card in of itself, which is really nice. I run them as a 4 of right now because usually I'll do this, then I'll do a mass attack, and then I'll go back to this, and it's huge. So I run them as 4 of right now. Next, I run currently 2 of Mukuro. Now, that may change in the near future. So, but for now, I like 2 of Mukuro. Mukuro works out really well for me. Basically, he Soul Blasts 2, and I choose a face-down card from my G-Zone and turn it face-up, and then I choose a card from my hand and discard it. And then I stay at my opponent's Vanguard, and he hits everything else, and I do the drive checks. So this is really nice if you want to get some, you want to go through basically just more cards in your deck to check some triggers and get some power going. And if you're facing against someone who, Royals or another clan that, floods the board and keeps the board there, this is really advantageous for you because you get a board wipe, and now they have to reassemble their board, and you get the cards, you get to drive check some extra stuff. So that's nice too. It's 5 drive checks total because they're going to be on a grade 3. I like this card. So, but I might take away one of them for what I'll talk about next. So, next is Enma Stealth Rogue Mujinlord. So I love Mujinlord. It's one of my favorite cards in the deck. It's probably one of, if not the more pricey card in the deck, G-Zone, I think. And so what I like about this card is, counter boss 1, you persona flip, a lot of persona flips in this. So you persona flip, and then choose a number of any player's rear guards as a number of face-up cards in the G-Zone, and they get power plus 4k to the end of turn. And then you stand all your opponent's rear guards that were chosen and dominate them, and then each attacks your opponent's Vanguard 1 at a time. So, technically, let's say you have 5 face-up cards, right? But they only have 3 dudes. Well, you choose their 3 dudes, and then you choose your 3 dudes, and your dudes are going to get power plus 4k, their dudes are going to get plus 4k, and then their dudes are going to get dominated. And then you go swinging at their Vanguard. So it's a good way to spread some power around, and then it's also just a good way to dominate your opponent a lot and attack. Because if you have 5 cards face up, and they have 5 dudes, and you can get them all to 11k, you're going to have a good old time. And it's really fun because of that, and yes. So before Chaos and Kagero really entered the meta, using 2 of these were typically enough to fight off a lot of decks. You didn't really need to go into a second Mujinlord, but a lot of people still ran a second set. Now I will say that it is I'm working on getting my second set currently during the filming of this video. Actually, Ryan just hit me up and told me he got the first of the second set I need. So now with Kagero, especially Kagero being able to retire so much of your cards, you're going to rely on taking control of their cards to kill him. And that's really nice. So you're going to want a second set of Mujinlord. So you may wonder, what am I going to get rid of? Well, I'm probably going to get rid of one of my Mukuros and probably one of my G-Guards. I don't know which one yet, but one of my G-Guards to make room for this one in particular. And I think that that's going to pay off really well for players who do that and have that second Mujinlord, both in the Kagero matchup and equally so in the Chaos matchup, because you have no way out of lock. If they lock your dudes, that's it. They're locked. But what makes things advantageous for you is, who cares if they have locked dudes? Who cares if you have locked dudes? I mean, obviously it stinks, but I mean, at least you have a silver lining in the sense that I'll just take over his dudes and we'll work from there. Really like that. So 2 of, increase it to 4 of when you get a chance. So the next we'll run, this is my 1 of tech. I'm still going to keep it in even still because this card can be incredibly detrimental. Let's say you're playing against a Chaos player or a Kagero player or something like that, and they just haven't been ready for it, and you hit them with Rikudo, Stealth Dragon, Tsukumorakan. So this is SP, by the way. So CB2, choose a face-down card in a G-Zone, turn it face up, and then your opponent chooses 4 cards from his hand and binds the rest of them face down. So into the end of the turn, and then he puts them back at the end of the turn. So basically, he has 4 cards to guard with that turn. So that's really nice. Now, what's really cool, you guys probably already know this. You have OG Shiranui. You stride over this. You use his skill first. ZB2. They have to ditch 4 cards. Or they have to ditch so many cards till they only have 4. Then you use his skill to CB another one. They have to discard one of the cards that they have left. So now they're down to 3 cards to guard the turn with. That's pretty effective. But also what you can do is you can go into oboro. You can do this, make him select the 4 cards, then use the on-stride of oboro and dominate one of his opponent's units and swing at him as Vanguard and making him discard a card. If he's at 5 and he has a huge hand and he's like, I can survive anything, this can really make him question that because you're like, okay, choose 4 cards. All right, now I'm swinging at you. You're at 5. You have to drop one of these cards for this extra swing, and I may still have a full board to do things with. So that's why I run him. I think it's really good utility in matchups that just are able to keep the game going. This could end them. I really like using it. So that's that. And then last, but not least of our actual strides, is Rikudo Stealth Dragon, Rokushikirakan. Let's go with that. So this is the GB8. This GB8 is, if you can get to it, man, are you going to have some fun with this GB8. So this GB8 says, when your opponent's unit is placed on G guard from hand, you may pay either Counterblast 1 or Soul Blast 1. That is so nice. If you do, your opponent chooses 2 cards from his or her hand and discards them. There isn't another thing that you get if they don't. There isn't something nice and frilly there. No, it basically says if they want to guard this attack, it's going to cost them at minimum 3 cards. It's so devastating how much this can affect a player, because basically when you drop this, you're saying a 5K is going to cost you 3 cards. A 10K is going to cost you 3 cards if you have just a vanilla 10K. Even a G Guardian is going to cost you a heal and then 2 other cards. A PG is going to cost you 4 cards. It changes the outlook of this. So if you can get to GB8 and you can drop this on your opponent, they are going to have a really hard time. And the fact that this card is so versatile because you can use Soul or Counterblast to pay its cost is so nice. It's a really good GB8. I have a lot of fun with it. If you can get to it, you'll have a good time with it. So now let's talk about G Guardians. So this is probably one of the ones I would get rid of, actually, not the other one, because this one gets you 5K, but it's quite expensive. But it is good for getting rid of pesky grade 1s that you might want to get rid of. Or if he has a 9K and a 7K and you're like guarding one of his attacks and you're like, if I get rid of that other grade 1, he won't be able to hit me with it, so I prevented another attack. So, or it has a very pesky effect that I don't want to deal with at the end of the turn. So this is Rikudo Stealth Dragon, Gehourakan. So this is Counterblast 1 and Soul Blast 1. When this card is placed on Guardian Circle, you pay the cost. If you do, choose one of your opponent's grade 1 rear guards from his or her back row, dominate it, and move it to your Guardian Circle. So since it's a 5K, most of the time you're only going to get, because it's a grade 1, most of the time you're only going to get 5K out of it. Yeah, and that's about it. So, but if you, there are moments where this card can be incredibly effective. I'm running it as a 2 of currently, but I have been starting to notice that as a 2 of, it's a little excessive. You never go through 2 of them. And there are other cards I'd rather use, like another set of Mujinlord instead. So, yeah. So do what you will. I'm running 2 currently, but I would advise maybe going down to 1. But start with 2 if you'd like I do, and then work your way to whatever you feel like. And then the next set of G guards we're going to go to is Jinx, Stealth Fiend, the heal trigger. So this is the heal trigger's counterpart as a G Guardian. I really like this G Guardian, actually. It's a lot of fun. So, and by that, what I mean by it's a lot of fun, its skill is very, it's very funny. It's just a very funny skill. I like it a lot. So, you choose a face-down G Guardian from your G zone, turn it face up. When this card is placed on Guardian Circle and you pay the cost, if you do, your opponent chooses a card from his or her hand, and he or she may discard it. If he or she did not discard it, then this unit gets plus 20k until the end of turn. So, this is really effective if they only have, it all depends, because sometimes they need the little cards that they have in their hand, or they're going to need to discard them for a skill or something. And this is going to really help you put the pressure on to say, let me be and let me have this that you're not going to hit me because it's plus 20k, or lose a card, which is going to help me if I can survive anyways. Sometimes I'll drop this just to get rid of one of their cards in their hand because I know that they'll do it. Sometimes I'll do it when I know they can't discard a card, or like they have too many valuable cards in their hand, just so I can get the plus 20k. It's a really versatile, useful card that gets into the psyche of the opponent, and it really, I like it. So I run it as a 2 of. Sometimes most of the time I'll only use it once. I think one time I've used it twice, and it was very interesting. But remember, if you use it twice, there goes your G Guardians. Back to back at least. So next, I use Secret Message Stealth Hermit Abu Dataishi. So the reason I use this one is this is your really good just here get 5k. When it's placed on Guardian Circle, if the number of cards in your hand is less than or equal to your opponent, it gets plus 5k until the end of that battle. So this is basically your generic, all right, I need 5k extra shield, I need 20k, drop this, I have equal to or less, there you go. I run this as a 2 of. I would keep this as a 2 of just because it's pretty easy to get the extra 5k, so it's a pretty easy 20k guard there. So that's my build. Let me know what you think in the comments, what kind of changes you'd make, what things you like. This is what I'm playing with right now. I hope that you enjoyed this, and this is the Captain signing off. Peace.